नमस्कार प्यारे बच्चों, आज की इस क्लास में हम लोग अर्थशास्त्र के माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स के एक अत्यधिक महत्वपूर्ण चैप्टर को पढ़ने जा रहे हैं। उपभोक्ता के व्यवहार का सिद्धांत, थ्योरी ऑफ कंज्यूमर्स बिहेवियर। हम सभी उपभोक्ता होते हैं। जब भी हम किसी वस्तु में निहित उपयोगिता का अपनी इच्छा को संतुष्ट करने के लिए प्रयोग करते हैं, हम उपभोक्ता बन जाते हैं, चाहे हम वस्तु को खरीदें या नहीं। तो क्रेता होना उपभोक्ता होने की कोई निशानी नहीं है। प्यारे बच्चों, वास्तव में जहां तक थ्योरी ऑफ कंज्यूमर बिहेवियर की बात है, ये माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स की बैकबोन मानी जाती है और इसका महत्व न सिर्फ क्लास 11th में है, बल्कि ये बीए, बीकॉम, बीबीए, एमबीए, एमकॉम इत्यादि इत्यादि सभी क्षेत्रों में इसके महत्व को आप देख सकते हैं। तो जहां तक अर्थशास्त्र की हम बात करें, आज की इस क्लास में हम लोग सबसे पहले बेसिकली हम आपको बताएंगे कि उपभोक्ता किसे कहते हैं। पर्सन और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन यूजिंग अप द एग्जिस्टिंग यूजफुलनेस, जिसे हम उपयोगिता भी कहते हैं, यूटिलिटी भी कहते हैं, ऑफ ए कमोडिटी टू सेटिस्फाई ह्यूमन डिजायर इज नोन एज कंज्यूमर। जैसे ही हमने किसी वस्तु में निहित उपयोगिता से अपनी कोई इच्छा संतुष्ट की, हम उपभोक्ता बन गए। As soon as we get satisfaction by using up the existing values of a commodity, we become consumer. Now let us see what are the essential elements involved in consumer. How can we become consumer? First of all, we should make it clear that whether you are an individual or organization, you may be a consumer. The commodity in question must be having utility in itself to satisfy human desire. At the same time, whatever we are consuming, whatever we are using, that must satisfy our desire. The desire should be the desire of human being. Only then we can say we are consuming a commodity. Our target is to get maximum satisfaction by spending minimum amount of money. That means we are rational consumer. As far as consumer behavior theories are concerned, we can classify them into two categories. Number one is cardinal approach. Number two is ordinal approach. And when we talk about cardinal approach of consumer behavior, this was backed up by Alfred Marshall and his followers, J.S. Mill, John Stuart Mills, etc. According to cardinal theorists, the existing power of a commodity to satisfy human desire can be defined as its utility. And this utility can be measured either in terms of utils or in terms of money. This was their first assumption, that utility is measurable. Whenever we consume any commodity, we get some satisfaction. That satisfaction is nothing but utility, and that utility is measurable either in terms of money or in terms of utils. This theory also expects rationality of consumer. All consumers are rational in the sense they can decide upon what is going to give him the best combination of satisfaction. The next assumption for this theory was every commodity is a standardized unit and to be consumed. Means every commodity has a standardized unit, and that standardized unit in itself as a whole is to be consumed. For example, if you drink drop of waters, your thirst can never be quenched. The standardized unit for water is a glass. A glass full of water if you consume, a cup of tea when you consume, not droplets of tea. So every commodity has a standardized unit, and that standardized unit is to be consumed at a time. Only then this law will be applicable. Continuity in the consumption. At the same time, there shouldn't be any gap between the consumption of first unit and the next unit. If there is gap, this theory will not work. Dear students, when we talk about utility, it can be classified into total utility as well as marginal utility. Total utility is the total amount of satisfaction which a consumer gets by consuming a certain unit of a commodity. As soon as we get some unit of commodity consumed, we get a certain amount of consumption as a whole. That is known as total utility. When we talk about marginal utility, it is nothing but the net addition to the total satisfaction which a consumer gets by consuming an additional unit of a commodity. Here, what we do, the net addition to the total satisfaction which consumer is going to get by using the last unit of a commodity. By using the last unit of a commodity, whatever amount of satisfaction is added up to the total is known as net addition, that is marginal utility. My dear students, MUN stands for marginal utility, which we get by nth unit of the commodity, can be find out by total utility which we get from the nth unit minus total unit which we get from the n minus 1th unit. So don't worry, it has to be discussed in detail in this chapter only. Then Marshall comes on law of diminishing marginal utility. As soon as we go on consuming additional units of a commodity, more and more units of a commodity, we get less and less amount of satisfaction. This falling tendency in marginal utility is known as law of diminishing marginal utility. Dear students, as we go on consuming more and more units of a commodity, the less and less amount of satisfaction from every additional we get. And Marshall says, since we are getting less amount of satisfaction, that's why we would like to give less price for the next unit. So what is the relationship between TU and MU, total utility and marginal utility? The first relationship is that TU increases along with increase in consumption of more units of commodity, but at diminishing rate. There is an increase in TU along with increase in the level of consumption, but the tendency to increase will be, the slope of TU will keep on declining. TU, total utility, increases as long as MU is positive. As long as marginal utility is positive, our total utility will tends to increase. When MU becomes 0, total utility becomes highest. As soon as MU becomes marginal utility becomes 0, that point is known as point of maximum saturation, strata. That's why this is the point where MU becomes 0, and at this point we find TU is highest. TU starts declining after when MU becomes negative. Let us see by the diagram. When consumer consumes 0 units of the commodity, the total satisfaction, total utility which he gets is 0. MU is not there. As soon as he consumes first unit of the commodity, consumer gets 10 units of satisfaction, and when we go into detail, we find MU is also 10. When the second glass of water is offered, consumer gets 16 units of satisfaction, and now when we talk about MU, we find 16 minus 10, that is nothing but MU. So here you'll find TU is increasing from 10 to 16, but at declining rate, that is MU is declining from 10 to 6. When third glass of water is taken by the consumer, we'll find total utility becomes 20. But when we talk about how much amount of satisfaction consumer is getting by the third unit of water, third glass of water, that will be 20 minus 16, that means 4 units. So in this way, when the fourth glass of water is taken up by the consumer, total utility becomes 20 and MU becomes 0. When we come into the diagram, we will find this is the fourth unit of water when consumer's MU has become 0, and at this 0 is marginal utility, his total utility is maximum. So in this way, we talk about change in TU at declining rate. And after this point, MU becomes negative. And when MU becomes negative, means there is nothing but you can find TU has also declined. Why? When is law of demand or law of diminishing marginal utility is applicable? Dear students, psychological intensity of human desire tends to decrease after every units of a commodity consumed. It's a psychological intensity. When we are thirsty, the first glass of water is going to give us more satisfaction because we just want to quench our thirst at any cost. So we will be able to give more money for the first glass of water. When the second glass of water is offered after consumption of first glass of water, we find intensity to have the second glass of water will be less. And that's why we would like to offer less amount of money as a consumer. Secondly, we have to consume the full glass of water, full cup of tea. Only then this law is. If you start dropping one water in the form of drops, you can never quench your thirst. At the same time, some more assumptions regarding this law is there. And third one is consumption must be in a continuous manner. First of all, consumer should consume standardized unit. Number next is it should be in a continuous manner. There shouldn't be any gap between the first and the next unit of water. Marginal utility of money is constant. Dear students, here you have to see the assumption being taken by this consumer, that is marginal utility of money is constant. MU cannot change. MU of money cannot be changed. When we talk about, because utility is measured in terms of money, and if marginal utility of money itself changes, there won't be any law which can be supported by this assumption. So MU of money must be constant. Consumer is rational. Again, another important assumption that we are all rational. We know how to get maximum satisfaction by spending least amount of money. Then comes other factors which can influence this tendency, this relationship between consumption should be constant, should not be changed. Dear students, what determines a consumer to buy a commodity? Let us see, when we go to a shop and see so many items, we also see the amount which we are keeping in our pockets or wallet. So still we have to do a number of calculations, which commodity we have to buy, how much we can buy, and which combination is going to give us the best possible satisfaction. So these are the questions to be solved before buying a commodity. First of all, price of the commodity is the most important factor which is responsible for our decisions. Price, of course, if that price is out of our pocket, we won't try to buy it. We know that we cannot buy cars of BMW because our pocket doesn't allow. iPhone we cannot afford. We know which brand we are going to buy. At the same time, marginal utility of the product, price of the commodity, then MU which we are going to get by that commodity, and then marginal utility of money, by whatever money you are having, what is the marginal utility of that money, that also has to keep in our mind. So let us go by an example. Suppose price of a commodity is ₹2 and MU of money is also 2 units. Let us see this consumer is going to buy how many units to get satisfaction, to maximize his satisfaction by the amount available. Now, when he purchases 0 unit of the commodity, he get 0 satisfaction, no question of purchasing or selling. When the first unit of commodity is consumed, he gets 10 units of satisfaction and marginal utility is 10. This, when we convert this marginal utility by in terms of money, we are getting 2 units of satisfaction by 1 unit of money. That means if you convert MU in terms of money, this 10 has to be divided by this 2. So MU in terms of money will become 10 by 2, that is 5. Now the question is whether he is going to buy the first unit of commodity. Because yes, because he is spending 2 into 1 at the rate of 2, he is spending 2 rupees, and his MU in terms of money is, he is spending only 2 rupees, and his MU in terms of money is 5 units. So he is getting more satisfaction by spending less amount of money, therefore he will buy. What happened when he decide to purchase the second unit of water, second unit of commodity? Here again we find he is getting 2 units. When we convert MU in terms of money, he is getting 3 units of utility MU, and he is spending per unit 2 rupees only. So it is again in the benefit of consumer to go ahead. What happened with the third unit of the commodity? Here we find consumer is getting 2 units of MU in terms of money, and he is spending 2 rupees at the same time. So again we can buy it because MU in terms of money is equal to the price of money, the amount which consumer is spending. Let us see the fourth. What happens in the fourth? Here MU in terms of money is 0 and he has to spend 2 rupees for every commodity, so he won't buy now. So third unit will be the ultimate for him to get maximum satisfaction. Let us see how can it be shown by the diagram. Dear students, I have just shown you how to draw MUX. Here you can see consumer's equilibrium will be at the point where price of X becomes equal to MUX of marginal utility of X in terms of money. So if the price is OPX, consumer would like to buy OQX and his point of satisfaction will be E. When we talk about the amount which he is spending, it is shown by yellow color, and the amount of satisfaction which he is getting is ODEQX. Now this part of shown by blue color is the consumer surplus. This consumer is getting more than what he is spending. Then consumer's equilibrium, when we talk about in two commodities, J.S. Mill is the follower of Alfred Marshall. According to J.S. Mill, we find consumer will be in equilibrium when he is spending he is getting equal amount of satisfaction by the last dollar, whether he spends it on X commodity or Y commodity. So the equilibrium condition becomes MUX upon PX should be equal to MUY upon PY must be equal to marginal utility of money. This is called law of equimarginal utility. So here consumer will be in equilibrium when he is getting equal amount of satisfaction whether that commodity is spent on X purchase of X commodity or Y. So this is a special diagram which you can see. Now here we find from left to right commodity X has been shown, and from right to left commodity X prime, that is another commodity, has been shown. So MUX upon PX, this is MUX upon PX curve, or this is MUY upon PY curve. Both the curves are intersecting at this point, and this is the point of equilibrium where consumer would like to consume. Now what will happen if he is not in the point of equilibrium and decides to consume OQ1 unit of commodity X, this XQ1 units of the commodity X, and X prime Q1 units of commodity Y. In this case, we find the amount of marginal utility which he is getting by consuming OQ1 unit of commodity, he is getting amount of satisfaction equivalent to Q1 B1. But when we talk about the amount of satisfaction which he is getting from commodity Y, we find it only CQ1. You can see you are getting more amount of satisfaction by commodity X than commodity Y. By commodity X, you are getting Q1B amount of satisfaction, and by commodity B, you are getting only Q1C amount of satisfaction. So your tendency will be to buy more of X and to decrease less of X prime. So if any movement from E point, we find either MUX becomes more than MUY or MUY becomes more than MUX. Therefore, your intention will be to come towards this point only, because this is the point when you get equal satisfaction whether you spend your last dollar on commodity X or on commodity Y. Dear students, what are the shortcomings of this approach? First of all, man is not a calculating machine. We cannot consider that man can calculate how much unit of satisfaction which consumer is getting by consuming first glass of water, by consuming second glass of water, and by consuming third glass of water. This type of calculation is not possible. Secondly, marginal utility of money is not constant. If it is so, then it wouldn't have been possible that one person is giving a tip of ₹100 to a waiter. At the same time, to earn that ₹100, a worker has to do labor work, physical labor work for the whole day to earn that money. So can we expect that labor can also give that hard-earned ₹100 as a tip to the waiter? If it is so, it means this law is also applicable on money. The person who is having more money is having less marginal utility of money. This is what this law is applicable even on money. Consumer has to pay not only on MU, he gets, rather it depends on elasticity. Dear students, actually what happens, consumer does not have to pay only on the marginal utility which he getting. Rather, it depends on elasticity of demand. Why this commodity is needed, what is the nature of commodity, what is the government policy, what is the taste, climate and culture. These are the things which are going to determine demand for a commodity. Then how can we expect that all the consumers are rational, all the consumers are having scientific approach? This is not possible at all. Unit of consumption may also vary. Dear student, when we try to buy a commodity, basically which is handmade, it's very difficult to get a uniform amount of commodity. It may vary. Even in the case of fruit, we find mango from the same tree, maybe smaller or bigger or medium size. So this is not possible even when we talk about standardized unit of product. This commodity, this law also assumes that utilities are independent. Means with whatever utility a consumer is getting by consuming an additional any commodity is independent from others. But is it possible to run a vehicle without fuel? Is it possible to work on by pen without ink? No, it is not possible. So utilities are also dependent. This law ignores. Now, what happens in the case of ordinal approach? Professor J.R. Hicks and Slutsky criticized badly the cardinalistic approach. Dear students, for your information, Professor J.R. Hicks was the student of Alfred Marshall only, and you can see he criticized his theory and says man is not a calculating machine, we cannot calculate utility, and there is no need even to calculate utilities. So what does J.R. Hicks says is we cannot calculate the amount of satisfaction which we get by consuming a commodity. As a man, we cannot be a calculating machine, we cannot be a calculator. There is no standardized measuring rod available for it. No, it is not possible how much unit of satisfaction you get by consuming first class, second class, third class. We can certainly give a number of combinations of two different commodities which give equal level of satisfaction to the consumer. He emphasized no need to calculate exactness, but a consumer can say which combinations are going to give him a certain amount of satisfaction. This ordering can be done by the consumer. He says we find there is no need to measure the utilities in terms of anything, but just to recognize the combinations giving equal satisfaction to a consumer, ordering out for scale of preferences. So if we get loci of different combinations of two different commodities that give equal satisfaction, we shall get indifference curve. He propounded the concept of indifference curve. Indifference curve means what? As a consumer, we know which combinations is going to give us a certain level of satisfaction. For example, if you are hungry, you know which combinations of bread and rice is going to fulfill your need of satisfying your desire of hunger. Here we find some assumptions also in ordinalistic approach. Money income of the consumer remains constant, it does not change. Consumer has to spend this income on two different commodities, not on one commodity. Then Hicks also says monotonic preferences. According to J.R. Hicks, if you consume more unit of a commodity without reducing the consumption of one unit, more consumption means more satisfaction. This is what is monotonic preference theory of J.R. Hicks. If you consume more of a commodity without reducing the other, you get higher level of satisfaction. This is what is called as monotonic preference. When we talk about rationality of consumer is rational. Again, he can decide upon which combination is going to give him best possible satisfaction. At the same time, other factors remaining the same means no other factors will change. Let us see what is being done by consumer to draw indifference curve or indifference set. Consumer is indifferent, means he is getting equal satisfaction. That's why he is indifferent about the combinations. So if a consumer who will be able to satisfy his appetite by consuming the following combinations of chapatis and rice. For example, first combination is, he says ki if you give me 1 chapati and 20 gram rice, I will be able to fulfill my appetite. But if you reduce rice by 5 units, you can give, you'll have to give me an additional unit of chapati. So when he consumes 2 units of chapatis and 15 grams of rice, he will be able to get on the same level of satisfaction. What happens when we talk about the third? You can see here, third chapati, more 3 unit of chapati is given. Consumer is ready to sacrifice 11 units to remain on the same satisfaction. So when we talk about, he's increasing one by decreasing another unit of commodity. At the same time, when we talk about MRSXY, marginal rate of substitution between X and Y commodity, here for the first unit, he is getting 1:20. And for the next 1 unit, he is ready to sacrifice 5 units of the commodity. And for the third one, he is able to get sacrifice 4 units of Y commodity to remain on the same level of satisfaction. When these combinations of X and Y commodity, chapatis and rice are made, we find a curve like this, which is downward slope. Downward slope is showing if you want to remain on the same level of satisfaction, you have to decrease at least one commodity to increase the consumption of another. So, what are the features of indifference curve? First of all, indifference curves are downward slope. Second feature is convex to the origin. Third is you can draw a number of indifference curves, which are known as IC, indifference map. Then higher IC shows higher level of satisfaction. Then some more features are there. Two ICs never intersect each other. ICs never touches any of the axes. Many ICs can be drawn in between two ICs. Then ICs are a bangle shape. These are the 8 features which we are going to discuss one by one. First of all, ICs are downward slope. Two indifference curves are downward slope. Means what? To remain on the same level of satisfaction, if you want to increase the consumption of one commodity, you have to decrease the consumption of other. This is what is called monotonic preference, as I just told you. To remain on the same satisfaction, you cannot consume more of one unit without reducing the consumption of other. So, since consumer is getting equal amount of satisfaction, which is possible only when he decreases one commodity for increase in the other commodity. So here we find inverse relationship between consumption of X and Y. If you want to increase one, you have to decrease second. If you want to increase X, you have to decrease the consumption of Y, and that's why this is downward slope. Dear students, at the same time I told you these are convex to the origin. Here you can see the arrows. For every additional unit of X, from X0 to X1, from X1 to X2, from X2 to X3, and from X3 to X4, you can see the amount of 1 unit. In order to obtain the amount of 1 unit of commodity X, consumer is ready to sacrifice less and less units of Y. These arrows are becoming smaller. This you can see. Why it is so? Because you can see, check here, for the first unit he was ready to sacrifice 5 units of Y, then 4 units of Y, then 3 units of Y, then 2 units of Y, and at last he is ready to sacrifice only 1 unit of Y. John, this is called law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution between X and Y. Then if you draw more than one IC, you can see IC map. Here you can see consumers IC0, IC1, IC2, IC3 are 3 different levels of satisfaction which consumer is able to get. And these 4 ICs makes IC map. Then comes higher IC shows higher level of satisfaction. I told you just because of monotonic preference. If IC is higher than the earlier IC, definitely at higher IC consumer will get more because he will consume more. Let us discuss in detail. Here you can see 2 ICs, one in red, orange, and the other one is in blue. The combination at point K on IC0, consumer is able to consume OY unit of commodity X and OX unit of commodity Y. OX unit of commodity X and OY units of commodity Y. And when consumer decides to move on point C on IC1, he will be able to consume X from X0 to X2 unit of commodity X. So here he is getting more consumption from X0 to X2 without reducing the consumption of Y. Consumption of Y is still same. So without decreasing the consumption of one, he is able to consume more unit of Y. Now law of monotonic preference will be applicable. More consumption means more satisfaction. Consumer can move on point A at IC1. Here again, without reducing the consumption of X, consumer is able to consume more unit of Y. So definitely more level of satisfaction will be there. Consumer can switch over to point B also. Here again, he is consuming more of X as well as more of Y. Instead of X0, he is consuming X1. Instead of Y0, he is consuming Y1. So more consumption means more satisfaction. Therefore, any rightward IC, any upward IC will definitely give higher level of satisfaction. Dear students, 2 ICs never intersect each other. Let us have a funny type of analysis over here. We have just told you higher IC shows higher level of satisfaction. Now at the point of B, both ICs are intersecting and showing the equal amount of combination of X and Y. Since same consumption level is there, so amount of satisfaction will also be same. What happens? At point A, you can see IC1 is higher than IC0. On the one hand, we are saying at B, both are consuming equal amount of commodity, therefore both are getting equal amount of satisfaction too, by applicability of law of monotonic preference. Then at point A, we say since IC1 is higher, so consumer is getting more satisfaction from IC1. And when we come at point C, we find consumer is getting IC1, IC0 has become higher than IC1. So there is a contradiction. At point B, both are giving equal satisfaction. At point A, IC1 is higher, giving a higher satisfaction. At point C, IC1 is higher, therefore higher satisfaction will be obtained from IC0. So this contradiction is not possible unless or until these lines or these points are merged among each other. ICs never touches any of the axes. Dear students, another feature is we are concerned with two commodities. Consumer is spending his money on different combinations of two different commodities. So at the point of tangency of ICs on any axis will definitely indicate consumer is consuming only one commodity, leaving away from the other commodity. Here in the diagram you can see at point A, consumer is consuming OA units of commodity Y but 0 unit of commodity X. And at point B, consumer is consuming OB units of commodity X but 0 unit of commodity Y. Therefore, this is not possible, as we can see. Another feature of indifference curves are you can draw thousands, millions of indifference curves between two ICs. As we have tried to draw number of ICs between IC0 and IC1. This will be your skill to draw and skill to decide how many ICs you are able to draw between. So as per law, you can draw as many ICs as you want between two ICs. Dear students, ICs are of Bengal shape. Just like Bengal, they are rounded off. Here from this point to this point, you can see law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution between X and Y is applicable. And from this point onward, this law of diminishing marginality becomes law of diminishing marginality of marginal rate of substitution between X and Y. It becomes marginal rate of substitution between Y and X. So now the consumer will start sacrificing Y units for every additional unit of X. So this commodity, this curve becomes a Bengal shape. Let us discuss about budget line. What is budget line? Dear students, only preferences cannot say how many units you are going to buy. So budget line also plays a crucial role. What is budget line? Suppose income of the consumer is rupees 100 and price of commodity is X. Price of commodity X is 10 rupees. Price of commodity Y is 20 rupees. Now let us draw budget line. Budget line is nothing but amount spent on commodity X, P0X, plus amount spent on commodity Y, P1Y, should be less than or equal to amount of money. In this case, it is 100 rupees. So when entire amount is spent by the consumer on commodity Y at the rate of 20, by spending 100 rupees, he will be able to get 5 units of commodity X, Y. What happens if he decides to spend the entire amount of income on commodity X? He will be able to buy 0 unit of commodity Y, but he can buy 100 units at the rate of 10. At the rate of 10 rupees, by spending 100 rupees, he will be able to get 10 units of commodity X. So 0 and 5 is the first combination, 10 and 0 is the next combination. In between, number of combinations you can obtain. You must have done it in your 7th or 8th class maths linear equation. So when you draw this, when the entire amount is spent on commodity Y, he is able to buy 5 units, and when the entire amount of commodity X is to be spent on X, we get this point. By joining this A and D point, we will get a budget line. Now here in budget line we find actually 3 types of combinations. The area shown by green is known as attainable combination. Why attainable? Because by 100 rupees and keeping the price of commodity X as 10 and price Y at rupees 20 per unit, he will be able to buy any combinations available in this area. So these are the attainable combinations. And when we talk about point F, which is outside the attainable area, becomes unattainable area. You cannot attain, you cannot obtain this combination by the existing amount of money, income in your budget. And when we talk about this yellow, bluish line, all the combinations on this point shows the consumer is able to purchase by spending the entire amount of money. Therefore, this is also known as optimum combinations, optimum use of income consumer is able to buy. Effect of change in price. What happens when the price of commodity X is changed? If the price of commodity X is decreased, the budget line will shift from AD0, AD2, here AD1. This red line will be the indicator of. So rightward shifting on X-axis will be found if there is a fall in the price of X. Here you can see no change in the Y-axis has taken place because there is no change in the price of Y. Keeping price of Y constant, if there is a fall in the price of X, consumer's budget line will shift right. In the same way, if the price of X is constant and price of Y falls, this budget line will shift upward. So this is what is called as shift effect of change in the price. Now, what is the effect of change in income, consumer's income? Dear students, as soon as consumer's income increases, budget line will shift rightward. Now, consumer can buy more units of X and Y both. If consumer's income goes down, it will shift leftward because consumer has to decrease the level of consumption by the income. But this shifting will be parallel shifting because the price line, rate of the price line, budget line is known as Px upon Py. Since there is no change in Px or Py, therefore there won't be any change in the slope of budget line, and all the budget lines which are changed due to change in consumer's income shifts in a parallel way. Now let us see the equilibrium, consumer's equilibrium. Here you can see PL is the budget line. Green area is the indicator of attainable combinations. And IC0, IC1, IC2 are the different indifference curves which consumer is getting. Here we can see at point A and B and E, 3 points are in competition where MRS_XY is equal to Px upon Py. So consumer's equilibrium will be the point where slope of the indifference curve becomes equal to the slope of budget line. That means MRS_XY should be equal to Px upon Py. So this is possible on point A, B and E. But actually consumer is on equilibrium at point E because the combinations which are shown by IC0, IC1, IC0 as A and B are below the IC1. E point combination shown by point E is higher than the combination of A and B. Therefore, consumer is getting more satisfaction at point E than at point A or B. Now let us see what is the effect of consumer's income on demand for a commodity. If the quality of the product is good quality, consumer's income, any increase in consumer's income will definitely increase the demand for good quality products. When we talk here, A0, B0 is the initial budget line When consumer's income increases and it becomes A1, B1, then A2, B2, higher the income shows more units of commodity of a commodity X and Y are consumed. Consumer's equilibrium moves from E0 to E1. He starts buying the combination of OX1 instead of OX0 and OY1 instead of OY0. So in this way, you can see more amount of satisfaction will be obtained by increasing consumer's income. If the commodity X is an inferior commodity and any increase in consumer's income, it will definitely decrease the demand for. Due to increase in consumer's income and the quality of commodity is very bad, what will consumer do? He will try to spend this increased income on the purchase of good quality product. Here you can see when the equilibrium, when the budget line shifts from A0, B0 to A1, B1, consumer's equilibrium shifts from E0 to E1. Now here you can see earlier consumer was consuming OX0 unit of commodity X, now he is consuming OX1 unit of the commodity. This is quite less. So why this has happened? Because quality of commodity X is inferior. If Y is inferior, you can see here, he is decreasing the consumption of Y, increasing the consumption of X. J.R. Hicks clearly says income effect may be positive or negative depending upon the nature of the product. If quality of the product is good, any increase in consumer's income, consumer will be buy more units of the commodity. If quality of the product is bad, any increase in consumer's income will encourage him to buy less unit of it. So here you can see when the consumer's income goes from A1 to A2, equilibrium point shifts from E1 to E2, consumer is ready to buy less unit of Y because commodity Y is inferior and more unit of commodity X, that is because quality of commodity X is good. When we draw three types of ICC income consumption curve, you get ICC1, ICC2 and ICC3. ICC1 shows commodity X is inferior, therefore it is inclined towards backward bending towards Y-axis. ICC2 shows both commodities are good quality commodity, therefore any increase in consumer's income will motivate him to buy more units of commodity X and Y both. And by green line ICC3, we are trying to show that commodity Y is inferior, therefore he would like to buy less unit of commodity Y and more of X due to any increase in consumer's income. What happens when price of a commodity falls? क्या होगा जब price किसी commodity की कम होती है? As soon as price of a commodity falls, it increases real income of the consumer. What is real income? Suppose price of a commodity falls from 10 to 5 and consumer is buying 10 units of the commodity. Earlier consumer was spending 100 rupees, now he is spending only 50 rupees. So this 50 rupees is the real income which is with consumer due to fall in the price. And what he will try to do with this 50 rupees will be considered as income effect. Then commodity with no change in the price becomes costlier. Another problem is there. Though price of one commodity is not changing, is constant, but due to fall in the price of its rival commodity, it will become relatively costlier even if its price is not changed. This is called substitution effect. According to J.R. Hicks, price effect is the sum of income effect and substitution effect. As soon as price of a commodity falls, it has two consequences, namely income effect and substitution effect. Let us see with an example about income effect. Now, in the table you can see consumer is having 100 rupees as income and the price is 10 rupees. He is purchasing 10 units, the entire amount he is spending, and zero income or real income is left with him. When the price goes down and becomes 5 rupees, he is buying 10 units of commodity, he will be able to get 50 rupees as saving and 50 rupees as expenditure. So this increased 50 rupees because of fall in the price is known as real income. Now, question is what this 50 rupees, where he is going to spend this 50 rupees, whether he is ready to buy more of commodity X or more of commodity Y. This is what will depend upon the quality of the product. If the quality of X is good, he will definitely use this money on X commodity. If the quality of product is bad, he will definitely use this money to buy more of commodity Y. So income effect may be positive or negative depending upon the nature of the commodity. If quality is good, any increase in real income will lead to increase in the demand for the commodity, but it becomes negative when quality of the product is bad. In this case, any increase in real income will decrease the demand for the bad quality product. So what is substitution effect? When we talk about Pratisthapan Prabhav, substitution effect, we get two commodities at the same time, tea and coffee. Here, increase in the price of tea leads to what? Decrease in the demand for tea. Why is it so? Because consumer will shift from the consumption of coffee to tea. If there is increase in price of tea, demand for tea will decrease because demand for coffee will increase. This is what is called substitution, shifting of consumer from one commodity to another to the price falling commodity is known as substitution effect. Though the price of Y is not changed, but it has become costly. Though the price of coffee is not changed, but it has become costly. As a result, you find substitution effect is always working in the same direction. It will increase the demand for price falling commodity. Dear students, why does it happen? Price falling commodity becomes more cheaper in comparison to the commodity with no change in the price. Hence, consumer of the other commodity with no change in the price will start shifting themselves towards the price falling commodity. Hence, substitution effect always work in a single direction of increasing the demand for the price falling commodity. How does this mechanism work? In the case of normal goods, good quality product with both the effects are positive. In the case of inferior goods, income effect becomes negative but weaker than positive substitution effect. Hence, law of demand works. So law of demand will work in the case of normal goods. It will work even in the case of inferior goods. But what happens with Giffen goods? Giffen goods, in case of the Giffen goods, negative income effect is stronger than the positive substitution effect. Therefore, law of demand will not work. Let us see by the diagram. Here you can see in the diagram PB PL0 is the initial budget line. PL1 is the next budget line. When the price falls, PL0 becomes shift rightwards and becomes PL1. In this case, we find consumers equilibrium shifts from E0 to E1 at higher IC1. Now let us see this effect can be classified into two effects, income effect and substitution effect. How? The amount of compensating variation was propounded by J.R. Hicks to check whether what will happen if, due to a fall in the price, whatever amount of consumer's real income increases is taken away by him from him in the form of compensating variation. So when the price goes down, price of X goes down, budget line will shift from PL0 to PL1. Consumer's equilibrium goes up from E0 to E1. Now consumer is buying OX2 unit of commodity X and OY2 units of commodity Y instead of OX0. So movement from X0 to X2 is the indicator of price effect. This price effect shown by blue arrow can be subdivided into two parts. If we draw whatever income has been gone up by the consumer due to fall in the price, if we take away that increased real income from the consumer, that can be done by drawing an imaginary income line from which is parallel to PL1 in the form of AB. AB is the imaginary budget line which is parallel to PL1. So this is parallel, means we are accepting the new terms of prices. Still, consumer's real income has been taken away in the form of compensating variation. So now let us see, when this amount is taken away and compels the consumer to go on the initial level of income, even if that 50 rupees which was increased due to fall in the price from 10 to 5, that amount has been taken away by drawing this parallel imaginary budget line AB. Consumer is not going on combination E0. What is he doing? He is purchasing the combination at E1. So income effect has been taken away, still he is buying this commodity. So movement from E0 to E1 is the indicator of substitution effect, because that income effect has been removed. When this income is given back to him, he will go on. So movement from E0 to E1 is the substitution effect, and movement from E1 to E2 is the income effect. And when we combine these two effects, we will get price effect. So price effect is the sum of income effect and substitution effect. This is what is shown by this diagram. Now here in this case, what is happening? Let us see. Arrows are from left to right, showing your substitution effect shown by red arrow and your income effect shown by black arrow. Both are encouraging the consumer to buy more unit of the price falling commodity. Both are working in the same direction. As a result, consumers' demand has gone up. Because of fall in the price, consumers' demand has gone up, because income and substitution effect both are motivating him to buy more of it. What happens in the case of inferior goods? Now here you can see movement from E0 to E1. If income is taken away, movement from E0 to E1 is the indicator of substitution effect, which is increasing the demand for the commodity. But when this income is given back to the consumer, he shifts from E1 to E2. That means he is going to buy more of Y and less of X. So that he is decreasing the demand due to stronger substitution effect. Consumer is buying OX1 unit of the commodity in place of OX0, but due to negative income effect, consumer is decreasing the demand from X1 to X2, shown by red. So here you can see, due to a stronger substitution effect, consumer is buying X2 instead of X0, which is higher than X0 also. So though, no doubt, income effect has worked in reverse direction due to the bad quality of the product, X. Still, consumer's law of demand is applicable. Consumer is buying more of X. In place of earlier he was buying OX0, now he's buying OX2. So this green area, shown by green part, is a net increase in the demand for the price falling commodity, even though income effect is negative. So in the case of inferior goods, income effect is negative, but negative income effect is weaker than the positive substitution effect. Therefore, law of demand will be applicable. What happens in the case of given goods? Here now you can see movement from E0 to E1 is substitution effect, which is increasing the demand for the commodity. But when this income is given back to the consumer, he goes on at point E2. So negative income effect, which is shown by green arrow, is stronger than the positive substitution effect, which is shown by the blue arrow. Therefore, net effect is shown by red arrow, which is decreasing the demand for price falling commodity. It shows that due to stronger negative income effect, it shows that quality of the product is very bad. So that's why sometimes it is said, it is also said that all given goods are inferior, but all inferior goods are not given, because some of the inferior goods were weak negative income effect enable the law of demand to work. But in the case of given goods, law of demand doesn't work, and hence it becomes an exception to the law of demand. We can draw demand curve also. When commodity X and Y are normal, when commodity X is inferior, we can draw the diagram. When commodity X is given even, then we can draw the diagram. Let us see how. In the upper part of the diagram, you can see earlier when the price was OP0, budget line was PL0, consumer's equilibrium was at E0, and consumer was buying OX0 unit of the commodity. So first point of demand curve we get when the price is OP0, consumer is buying OQ0, that is equal to OX0. So this is the combination A which we get for demand curve at OP0 price. When the price falls and becomes OP1, budget line shifts rightward and becomes PL1. Consumer's equilibrium goes on at E1. Here you can see E1, and when you draw a perpendicular from E1 on the x-axis, you get OQ2 combination. So when P1, OP1, OQ1 combination we get, and here by this we get 2 points A and B on demand curve. Third point can also be seen when price of commodity X goes down, further goes down to OP2, demand for commodity X goes up because it's a normal commodity. So we get a demand curve which is downward slope from left to right. So dear students, J.R. Hicks has successfully drawn consumer's demand curve with the help of his tools and techniques of difference curve analysis. What happens in the case of commodity X is inferior? You can see your demand curve is still downward slope, but not in the same ratio as you saw in the earlier case. Here both the effects are working in the same direction and increasing the demand for price falling commodity, but here income effect is negative, therefore it is not increasing the demand for the price falling commodity, rather it is decreasing. Because positive substitution effect is stronger, therefore consumer is able to buy more of X due to falling price. So if the commodity is inferior, its demand curve will be inelastic, means more change in income, more change in price will enable the consumer to buy its more units. When we talk about commodity X is given, clearly you can see when the commodity X is given, here you can see an upward sloping demand curve, because when the price was OP0, consumer was at combination C, purchasing OQ2. When price goes down and becomes P1, consumer's equilibrium is at point E1, on the upper part of the diagram. Drawing perpendicular from E1, we get OQ1, which is less unit of consumption than earlier one, because its quality is very bad, because its quality is given. Now, demand curve will be. Accordingly, you can see three types of diagram. The sky blue diagram shows it is downward slope. Both the effects are working in the same direction, and it is quite elastic than the other one. In the second diagram, we get demand curve is still downward slope of inferior goods. Quality is bad. Therefore, it is not as slant as in the case of earlier one. And when we talk about given goods, in the case of given goods, demand curve becomes upward sloping from left to right. More price will encourage the consumer to buy more of it, and vice versa. Dear students, here comes demand. What is law of demand? These are the things to be studied in this class. Demand is nothing but an effective human desire backed by ability and willingness to pay for a particular unit of a particular commodity. So, what is demand? What are to be included in demand? Demand is any human effective desire which is backed, it must be backed up by ability to pay to buy a certain unit of the quantity. What are the essential elements? Let us see. First of all, that desire should be human and in an effective way. It should not be done in a dreamy way. Yes, I want to purchase this. This should be clearly declared. And moreover, consumer, the person who is willing to pay, must be having ability to pay for it. Willing to buy, it has, without ability to pay, your dream may become dream, your desire may remain desire, but your desire can never be converted into dream. And at the same time, willingness to pay is also another important factor. You are having effective desire, you are having ability to pay, but you are not willing to spend your money. That desire cannot be converted. We can get the example of a miser whose son is ailing by some disease. He wants his son to be cured. He is having ability to pay for it, but doesn't want to spend a single penny on it. So his desire for the recovery of his son will remain desire only. Secondly, this desire, this ability, this willingness must be with the reference to buy a particular unit of a particular commodity. Only then your desire can be converted into demand. Let us see demand schedule. Demand schedule can be divided into individual demand schedule and market demand schedule. When different combinations of two different commodities are shown for a particular commodity, for a particular consumer at different prices, this is known as individual demand schedule. Now, when we talk about customer A and he is ready to buy 0 unit at ₹10, we get first combination as point A. When price falls and becomes 9 rupees, consumer starts buying 1 unit of the commodity, we get second point as B. In the same way, we can draw individual demand curve, which is the combination of prices and different units of the commodity which consumer is ready to buy. When this is drawn for the entire market, when all the consumers at price 10, you can see none of the consumer is ready to buy any single unit. When the price falls and becomes 9, consumer A starts buying, B and C are not willing to buy. Therefore, in the market only, when the price is 9, demand will be 1 unit. When the price falls, you can see demand has become 3 units. By consumer 1, he has also started buying. Consumer A has increased his consumption from 1 unit to 2 unit. So in this way, when all the consumers are taken into consideration at different prices, when the quantity purchased by all the consumers all together at different prices, we get market demand schedule. You can draw individual demand curve as well as market demand. You can see three different individual demand curve. Just have a look on it. When the price is 0, consumer is willing. When the price is 10, consumer A is willing to buy 0. When the price has become 9, consumer A is willing to buy 1 unit. When the price is 8, consumer A is willing to buy 2. So this is individual demand. When we draw all the individual and club them into vertical summation through vertical summation, we get what it called market demand schedule. So when the combinations are taken from the market demand schedule and draw a diagram, we get market demand curve. And when individual data is taken, we get individual demand schedule, demand curve. What is law of demand? Other factors remaining constant, the existing inverse relationship between the price and the demand for a commodity is known as demand. What is law of demand? Dear students, other factors such as income of the consumer, taste and preference of the consumer, fashion of the commodity should remain constant. What we find, the inverse relationship between price and the demand for a commodity. If there is a fall in the price of one commodity, consumer would like to buy its more unit. If there is a rise in the price of one commodity, consumer would like to buy its less unit. This inverse relationship between price and quantity, keeping all other factors as constant, is known as law of demand. So what are the essentialities? What essential elements are present in law of demand? First of all, price and demand are inversely related. They are inversely related. And second thing, other factors such as income of the consumer, fashion, taste, climate, these should not change. What is demand function? Demand function shows the functional relationship between the quantity demanded for a particular commodity to that of its determinants is known as demand function. Now here in this case you can see DD is the quantity demanded, which depends on so many functions, so many factors such as price of commodity X, price of commodity related commodities. Then Y stands for income of the consumer, T stands for taste of the commodity, F stands for fashion for the commodity, FE is future expectations for the commodity, and then S is the size of market, and YD is the disposable income distribution. What are the determinants? Dear students, determinants, when we talk about determinants of commodity demand, first of all is the price of the commodity itself. Secondly, prices of related goods. Thirdly, income of the consumer, taste and preference for the commodity. Then fashion, future expectations about the fall or rise in the price, size of the market, distribution of income. In this way, you can see so many factors are going to influence the demand for the commodity. Dear students, price of the commodity is the most important factor which has an effect on demand. Here we find there is inverse relationship between price and the quantity demanded. Any increase in price will decrease the demand, and any decrease in price will increase the demand. This is what is called as demand. Now, what happens in the case of related goods? Prices of related goods also affect demand for the commodity. You can see if there is increase in price of coffee, there will be increase in demand for tea, because consumer from the consumption of coffee, whose price is increasing, will shift their consumption from coffee to tea. In the case of complementary goods, we find both things are inversely related with each other. Complementary goods are those goods which become useless in absence of any one of them. Therefore, any increase in price of fuel will decrease the demand for vehicle also. So, demand for a commodity is affected by price of other commodity also. What is the income effect? In the case of normal commodity, you can see any increase in income will increase the demand, any decrease in income will decrease the demand. But this effect becomes negative when we talk about inferior goods and different goods. If there is increase in income, demand will decrease, and if there is decrease in income, consumer would like to buy its more units. Taste and preference work as an important factors in making demand for a commodity, may lead to exceptions to the law of demand. How? If you are habitual of a commodity, if you give your preference that I would like to consume only this type of chocolate. So even if price of that chocolate goes up, is higher than the other commodity, comparatively higher than the other commodity, you would definitely like to buy only that commodity. So sometimes it becomes exceptions to the law of demand also. Then change in fashion, climate also affect. During rainy season, you can see demand for umbrella, demand for rainy suits goes up. During winter season, woolen clothes, demand for woolen clothes goes up. So if there is a fashion for a commodity, even at higher price, consumer would like to buy its more unit. So demand does affect. Dear students, you can see price, future expectation about availability of commodity, about price rise or fall in the price also affect. Any speculation about availability of a product, anticipated near rise in the price, or sometime mere rumors about a commodity leads to a big change in the demand. इसका example भी आप देख सकते हैं. Then comes about size of the market. You have to attract new customer, those who are unable to buy at this particular price. In that case, price is to be decreased. Only then you can increase your size of market. Dear student, it is said that equal distribution of income leads to more demand for consumers item. On the other hand, if there is unequal distribution of income, demand for luxury item will be more. Why is demand curve downward slope? Demand curve is downward slope because of income effect, because of substitution effect, because of law of diminishing marginal utility, because of size of the market. We have studied in detail about all these things. We have drawn demand curve by using indifference curve, by using income and substitution effect. We have also classified the inferior goods, different goods and normal goods by using indifference curve. Still, what is income effect? If there is decrease in price, consumer's real income will go up, and because of this increased real income, consumer's purchasing power will go up, and then in this case consumer will be able to buy more units of it. This is called income effect. And if there is increase in the price, real income will go down, purchasing power will go down, and consumer has to decrease its demand. This is called income effect. When we talk about substitution effect, we find any increase in the price of coffee will decrease the demand for coffee, because shifting of consumer from coffee to tea will be taken place, and demand for tea will go up. Similarly, if there is a fall in the price of coffee, demand for coffee will go up, because there will be a shifting of demand for tea consumer to the coffee consumption. Law of diminishing marginal utility. More units of a commodity is consumed, brings less and less marginal utility. Hence, for every additional unit, consumer would like to pay less price. Dear student, we have done in detail. For every additional unit, consumer gets less satisfaction, less MU, therefore he would like to offer less price. So there is inverse relationship between price and the quantity consumed. Then comes size of the market. If there is a fall in the price, new customer, those who are earlier unable to buy, they also start buying it. And in this way, size of the market will expand. If there is a fall in the price, it will contract. Size of the market will contract if there is a rise in the price. Therefore, this is also going to affect. Now, what are the exceptions to the law of demand? First of all, given goods. Given goods are those goods whose negative income effect are stronger than the positive substitution effect. Therefore, any decrease in the price of the commodity decreases its demand also, and any increase in the price of commodity increases its demand. Then comes demonstrative items, which are antiques, paintings, showy items. Any increase in the price of such commodity will make them more point of attraction for rich people. They will try to buy it and keep it there in shelf or drawing rooms. Change the taste and fashion and climate. Definitely, if there is a change in the taste, fashion or climate, demand will also change, and law of demand will not be applicable. Government policy all of a sudden decides to purchase or to not allow to purchase will affect the demand, and hence works as exceptions to the law of demand. Let us see what type of changes can be taken place in case of demand. Dear students, a demand may change either due to change in the price or due to change in other factors. If demand is changing because of change in price, it will lead to exceptions to the, expansion to the law of demand or contraction to the law of demand. However, when there is change in demand because of change in other factors, for example, income or taste, climate, fashion, there will be increase or decrease in demand. So, 4 types of changes you can see when we talk about change in demand. Number 1 is expansion in demand, contraction in demand, increase in demand, decrease in demand. Expansion and contraction takes place due to change in price. Increase or decrease takes place due to change in other factors other than price. So, expansion, in the case of expansion in demand, consumer would like to buy more units of a commodity when there is a fall in the price. This is called expansion to the demand. In the case of contraction in demand, we find consumer is willing to buy less units of the commodity when there is increase in the price of the commodity. In the same way, what happens? In case of increase in demand, we find consumer is buying more unit of the commodity due to increase in the income, not due to decrease in the price. Similarly, decrease in the demand is seen when consumer's income goes down. So in this way, we can draw all these 4 types of changes. We can show diagrams also. In the first diagram, you can see when the price goes down from OP0 to OP1, consumer starts buying OQ1 from OQ0. So this is the tendency which can be considered as expansion in demand. Consumer's movement is on the same demand curve. You can see consumer's demand movement is from point A to point B on the same demand curve. Similarly, you can see when there is a rise in the price from OP0 to OP1, consumers starts buying less unit of the commodity from OQ0 to OQ1. Still, you can see consumer is on the same demand curve. Now, what happens in the case of increase or decrease? At OP0 price, earlier consumer was buying OQ0, but now he is buying OQ1. Shows at the same price, more unit is demanded. This is what is called increase in demand. And this is because of increase in income. In the same way, when we find consumer is willing to buy less unit of the commodity at the same price, this is called decrease in demand. So in the case of increase in demand, consumer's demand curve shifts rightward from DD to D dash D dash, and in the case of decrease in demand, consumer's demand curve shifts leftward from DD to D dash D dash in the second part of the diagram. Now we are coming on elasticity of demand, the quantitative responsiveness between proportionate change in the demand to that of proportionate change in the price of a commodity. Dear student, what we can see here, actually law of demand tells us any fall in price will increase the demand, or any rise in price will decrease the demand. It shows us the direction only, whereas elasticity of demand shows us the ratio. What will be the effect of certain percent change in price on the demand? So you can find out elasticity of demand by percentage change in demand upon percentage change in price, or by delta Q upon delta P into P by Q, where delta is the indicator of change and P and Q are the initial price and initial quantity demand. Types of elasticity of demand, if we talk about, we find three types of elasticity of demand: price, income elasticity of demand, and cross elasticity of demand. We have just given you the formula about price elasticity of demand. When elasticity of demand is measured on the basis of change in the price of the commodity, we get price elasticity of demand. When elasticity of demand is measured on the basis of change in income, consumer's income, we get income elasticity of demand. Dear students, price elasticity of demand is always negative, but income elasticity of demand may be negative or positive depending upon nature of the commodity. Then come on cross elasticity of demand, when we try to find the effect of change in price of X on demand for Y, two commodities in a cross way, we get cross elasticity of demand. So in this case, you have to find out percentage change in demand for commodity X upon percentage change in the price of commodity Y. Delta QX upon delta PY into PY upon QX. What types of elasticity of demand are there? Actually, there are 5 types of elasticity of demand. A commodity is said to be perfectly inelastic, unitary elastic, elastic demand, and then perfectly elastic demand. In the case of perfectly inelastic demand, in spite of remarkable change in the price, consumer cannot change the demand at all. Say, for example, medicines. Whether the price of medicine goes up or down, he has to buy the same unit. So this type of, in this case, coefficient of ED will be equal to 0, and consumer won't be able to buy more units even if there is a remarkable fall in the price. This you can see in this box. Commodity is said to be inelastic when elasticity of demand is more than 1, but it is more than 0 but less than 1. In this case, you can see a big fall in the price from 10 to 5 has compelled the consumer to buy only a negligible amount of commodity. Price of the commodity has become half, but demand has gone up by 10%. So in this case, the value of ED will always be less than 1. It will be more than 0 but less than 1. When we calculate this, we get only 0.2. This is less than 1. So demand for such commodity are known as inelastic, which commodities which cannot respond more in comparison to change in price. Then demand is said to be unitary elastic when percentage change in price, quantity demanded is equal to the percentage change in price. ED, the value of ED will always be equal to 1. Demand is said to be elastic when the value of ED is more than 1, but it is less than infinity. So the value of coefficient of ED is more than 1, but it is less than infinity. Here in this case, you can see a small change in price will lead to a big change in demand. Now, in the case of perfectly elastic demand, we find consumer changes his demand even though there is no change in the price. You can draw the diagram for all these terms. Here you can see in the first diagram, you can see demand curve is perfectly inelastic, showing in spite of change in price, consumer is unable to change the demand. When the price was OP0, consumer was buying OQ0. When price goes down and becomes OP1, consumer is still buying OQ0. And in this case, you can see a demand curve which is parallel to y-axis, indicating consumer cannot change the demand even though there is a change in price. Now, in the second case, we find the red arrow shows the change in price and the blue one shows the change in demand. You can see the blue arrow is quite smaller than that of red arrow. Here, that shows a big change in price has led to a very small or negligible change in the demand. So this is what is called as inelastic demand. When the red arrow and blue arrow both becomes equal, that means percentage change in price becomes equal to percentage change in demand. Commodity is said to be unitary elastic. In the same way, when there is a blue arrow becomes bigger than the small arrow, shows change in quantity, percentage change in quantity is higher than that of percentage change in price. Therefore, commodity is said to be elastic. And in the last case, we find price is same, still consumer is buying more or less units. So this type of commodity are perfectly elastic. Determinants of elasticity of demand. Dear students, what are the determinants of ED? First of all is number of uses of a commodity. Second is availability of close substitutes. Third is nature of the commodity. Fourth is share of expenditure on the commodity in the consumer's income. Fifth is postponement of uses. Sixth is time. First of all, number of uses. If a commodity is having more number of uses, definitely its demand will be more elastic, because consumer will be able to decrease the number of uses, and hence they will be able to decrease the demand if there is a big change in price. However, if a commodity is having very less number of uses, this is not possible. In the same way, we find availability of close substitutes also it plays a. If a commodity is having more substitutes, its demand will be more elastic. If it is having a less number of substitutes, its demand will be less elastic. Nature of the commodity may be essential. If it is essential, it will be inelastic. If it is luxury, it may be elastic. Share of expenditure. If a consumer is spending a big amount of his income on that commodity, demand is said to be elastic. If he is spending a negligible part of his income, for example, on the matchbox, we spend a very negligible part of our income. On salt, we spend a very negligible part of our income. Therefore, demand for salt, or this is inelastic. Whether price goes up or down, consumer buys more or less same unit. Postponement of uses. If consumer is able to postpone the uses of that commodity, it will be elastic. However, it becomes inelastic when consumer is unable to postpone its uses. In the same way, we find time period. When we talk about time period, we find if a commodity is easily available, can be produced in a short time, its demand will be elastic. If it cannot, it takes a long time to be produced for the production, it will be inelastic. Now, how to measure elasticity of demand? There are a number of methods: point method, income method, total outlay method, arc method, and graphical method. Dear students, We have discussed about point method, we have discussed about income method, we have discussed, now we have to discuss about the remaining method. So in the case of point method, we have just detailed you delta Q upon delta P into P by Q, or percentage change in demand upon percentage change in the price is point method. Income method, in case of income method, we apply income in place of price. Whereas when we talk about total outlay method, by watching, by observing change in total expenditure which consumer tends to do due to change in the price, we can find out elasticity of demand also. This method is known as total expenditure method or total outlay method. Change in the amount of expenditure on the commodity due to change in the price is used to measure this elasticity of demand. If we find positive relationship between price and total outlay, demand is said to be inelastic. If we find inverse relationship between price and total outlay, demand is said to be inelastic. And if there is no change in total outlay in spite of change in price, demand is said to be unitary elastic. So in this case, you can see just three types of elasticity of demand are found. If due to change in the price, if due to increase in the price, your total expenditure on that commodity increases, it shows that you are bound to buy certain unit of that commodity and demand is said to be inelastic. If price increases and consumer decreases the demand, in that case you can see demand is elastic. Or if there is no effect on total outlay in spite of a change in price, demand is said to be unitary elastic. This method is not considered as a scientific method because it may give us wrong answers. It may tell us only direction, not coefficient of ED as we see in other. Now students, coming on graphical or point method, by this, using this method, you can prove that elasticity of demand on different points of the same demand curve may be different. It's a very important method. Here, in order to measure elasticity of demand, you have to calculate lower segment of the demand curve by upper segment of demand. Now, you can see point A, B, C, A, B, M, C, D. At point M, lower segment of the demand curve is AD. When AD is divided by upper segment, that is 0, so demand curve is what? It is infinity. At point A, it is infinity. When we talk about point B, BD is the lower segment, you can see. BD is the lower segment and AB is the upper segment. So BD by AB. BD by AB, that means demand is elastic, more elastic, it is more than 1 because lower segment is bigger than upper segment. M, if we consider as midpoint, then MD upon AM will be equal to 1 because MD or AM will be C. ED at point C, you can see lower segment is CD, which is smaller than AC, which is upper segment. So in this case, you get ED as less than 1. When we talk about point D, we see ED at point D, lower segment is 0, upper segment is AD, so 0 divided by AD becomes 0. So by using this method, you can easily show. Significance of elasticity of demand. Dear students, elasticity of demand is very significant, not only to the monopoly for the price determination, it is also useful for the consumer in their bargaining power. Before fixing the price, monopoly has to see elasticity of demand for his product. He gets higher price fixation power if demand is inelastic, and lower price fixation power if demand is elastic. Similarly, consumer knows if demand is inelastic, their bargaining power is very less. If demand is elastic, their bargaining power is more. Now, do you think why government is able to charge higher price, higher taxes on alcoholic products? Because government knows it is concerned with habituality and consumer has to buy even whatever amount we are going to impose in the form of tax. So government's tax imposition power goes up if demand is inelastic. It is very less if demand is elastic. Now, this is important point, important concept which help in determining the prices and bargaining power for the imports also. Elasticity of demand is very useful for the researchers and scholars in their researches. Today, that's all. All the best. Thank you.